I think Scream is one of the best movies ever made. I think that Wes Craven is one of the best directors to ever do it. It is certainly at the top of my fandom. I think it's intelligent. I think it's timely, and I think it's timeless all in one. Now, I got a chance to see Scream in theaters this year. Finally completed the set. This movie was an experience in theaters, y'all. Not only was it seeing Scream in theaters, but also the soundscape, getting a chance to see it in that format added to the experience because there were little character notes, little lines said under the breath, something like that, little background noise pieces that added to this already present feeling like this world created through Scream, Woodsboro. There are things happening outside of just what is being shot with the camera. And that is where Scream thrives. That is why I fundamentally believe that this movie is timeless. That, coupled with the fact that you create an environment where you are actively interested in multiple characters' POV, makes it so that way this movie is able to do something that other movies that are its contemporaries were never able to do. See, the teen slasher genre got a reinvigoration with Scream. There's a reason why there's that distinction given of post-Scream slashers, because it changed the game. It called it on its face and said this is a satire and a commentary on basically the state of horror, while also embracing the key fundamentals of what makes horror actually compelling, especially for this new generation, this late 90s generation. But even though it is so late 90s, it is 1000% that. You're still able to embrace this world because it is so large. It feels so lived in. It begs for you to play in this world off screen, trying to make heads or tails of the blind spots that we have in every person's POV while still keeping the canon, still keeping the anchor points in check. And the way that this movie invites you into that experience is exactly why it is as special as it is. And that is where the Tatum theory was born. Last year, I made a video, the Tatum theory. Basically, Tatum's involved. This year, having seen it in theaters, Mrs. Bearded Geek and I really workshopped this afterwards. Shout out to her because she basically built the timeline. And I looked over everything and I'm like, no notes, this makes all of the sense in the world. And so this year, we're expanding on the Tatum theory with a timeline of events, breaking down her movements and how her being involved adds to the story as a whole. But before we get there, we have to go through our non-negotiables. The movie ends, well, it climaxes with the kitchen reveal. Billy and Stu duel Ghostface 2 instead of 1, totally breaking what was normative. They murdered Maureen Prescott after discovering her affair with Billy's father and abducted Neil Prescott to frame him for the current killing spree. Tatum, Sid's best friend and Stu's girlfriend, dies at Stu's house party via the garage door. These are facts, and they anchor everything that we're going to talk about that happened off screen. The script also pins several small but crucial details in place that help us out. Tatum publicly alibis Stu. Sid tells Tatum everything. She knows her dad isn't around. She knows that she's at her house by herself because she's waiting on her to come pick her up because she's supposed to stay at their house for a couple of days. Then Sid receives a phone call at Tatum's house after everything goes down. And Tatum seems to know about the party before Sid does. Now, it matters that we look at those background details that support the anchor points because from a visual standpoint, Wes Craven does a great job at separating the voice, the physical characteristics once the mask is on, and the events that are happening on screen. Each one of those is its separate puzzle piece because he doesn't want to make it so blatantly obvious. And then you have Roger L. Jackson, the voice, the GOAT. This man defined what horror sounded like for an entire generation. But each one of these pieces is its own aspect. And so looking at the side details helps us to situate within the larger context. And it's in that negative space that Scream really finds itself. Ghostface is a mask more than anything else. The phone being this disembodied aspect of things is part of what makes this whole setup possible. Because if any of those pieces were so clearly defined, then all of this would kind of fall apart. Now, I want to be clear, Tatum is not the third Ghostface. She's a facilitator. She's the one who ferries bodies, supplies information, and manufactures normalcy. So that way the guys can stage and commit their murders. So we start off our timeline with night one, Casey and Steve's house. So simply put, she's the getaway driver here. Stu and Billy execute the opening murders. I know that different theories exist on who did what in this opening sequence. I won't go through the entire thing beat for beat, but I like to believe that it is Stu who gets Casey because he would be the most emotionally invested in this one. Same thing with Tatum, actually. And that just would do more for his character. Now, I know exactly why most theorists place Billy as the main killer here, but again, there's plenty of room to kick the can around. Regardless of who does the deed, Tatum is waiting nearby in the car, and she's there because she's fiercely protective of Stu. She is guarding him in a way by making sure that they have a clean getaway. Not to mention, there would be a thrill behind, waiting close by, knowing that everything is happening the way that it is. Now, it's not just about getting them out of there, but completing the rest of that night's events. So afterwards, presumably, Billy goes to her house and climbs through the window, and that we get that whole scene. I think she drives him there. Then both guys, they kidnap Neil. She's the getaway driver to get Neil to where they're keeping him, and then getting Billy back to his house, and then concreting Stu's alibi by bringing him to her house. So that way, when she gives that line the next day, that Stu was with me last night, it's not that she's been given a line and she knows her line. It's that she is so confidently stating it because he was actually at her house last night, and presumably Dewey and her mom can both testify to that, establishing his half of the alibi. Over the next couple of days, this is where we would get a lot of the personality beats of Tatum played out. So there's the scene with Sid alone at her house. That entire situation was known by Tatum. Tatum knew that Sid was by herself. She was waiting on her to go pick her up. She knew that nobody was at the house waiting with her, that she was completely by herself. She was able to orchestrate the perfect scenario for the two guys to come and attack her, and then to establish Billy's alibi by getting him arrested and setting up the situation where she let Stu know that they were back home after everything goes down. And that way he could call her from Neil's phone, completely keeping him out of it, while also giving Billy a rock solid alibi because he was in prison. And the entire time, Tatum feels like she couldn't care less. She feels very disconnected about anything that actually happened, and like any kind of sympathy that she shows is manufactured. And then when you have the scene between Sid and Tatum sitting on the porch on the railing, Tatum shows that she has a very specific level of cavalier nature towards the subject of Sid's mom. Even from the very beginning, where she's going to take a shot at saying that this is the most gruesome thing to happen since, and then she stops herself. It's setting up that this is an undercurrent topic, but also we're even seeing Tatum's personality there. And Tatum often treats Maureen as a topic that she can joke around about, or at least broach very directly, while Sid is so clearly guarded and damaged about the entire thing. On this watch through, Tatum's semi-cavalier stance felt like it was signaling to a larger internal story. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And she privately thinks Sid has doubts tied to Maureen's choices. And the rationale that makes collaborating with Stu and Billy feels less like treason and more like cosmic tidying, because again, she is fiercely loyal to Stu and she feels like a thrill seeker. And so the thrill of this whole cat and mouse thing, Tatum thinks that she is the third member of the triangle that's ultimately orchestrating Sid's downfall. And so that leads us to the party. There are logistical pieces that have to be in place for all of this to happen the way that it happens. All of this is premeditated, and I would argue that it makes even more sense if Tatum is in on the fact that this party is a kill box, essentially, because she would have to get Sid to even agree or to be primed towards any of the decisions that she makes, because even in the grocery store, it feels like she's getting her in a certain kind of mindset heading into this party. Tatum's easy sarcasm in all of this reads as the movie's pressure valve. even cavalier at the edges of Maureen's talk, it's still social grease. And in this model, it's op prep. So at the party, we have to now figure out the logistics of Tatum's death. Because if she is the third member of the team, then why does she get it? Tatum sent for beer. The script explicitly shows that kitchen door quietly closing behind her. When she goes back to it, it's locked. She jokes around with Ghostface, being the first one to actually call him Ghostface, then fights. There is a sharp, incredible turn from quipping to survival that happens here, and it's the mechanics that matter. Stu stays inside. He's the one who locks the door from the outside or from the inside and makes sure that nobody goes in there, keeping the door secure. Billy is the one that's actually in there. And there's a moment where she realizes that she is now the next expendable one. She is next up on the list. And Billy ends it fast, ugly, and then exits the exterior route. Stu remains the visible host, never missing a beat, allowing for the rest of the events that ultimately lead to the kitchen reveal to take place. So she goes from being a key member to being expendable and a loose end to be tied up. And I would argue that the psychology that we are given for Tatum throughout the entirety of the movie's runtime is exactly perfect for all of this to have taken place, for her to be the getaway driver, for her to be the one that's sitting there poking and really breaking down the psychology of Sid while orchestrating the events where she gets attacked and then helping to orchestrate this party and then realizing until once it's too late that she has walked right into the lion's mouth. We start off with her attachment. She is fiercely loyal to Stu. She was clearly bonded with Sid at some point. You don't really get that level of connection without the preamble of having been genuine friends. But after being with Stu, being so protective of him and being so attached to him that she's very easily convinced that Sid is the problem. And she is a thrill seeker enough to actively get involved in each one of these different scenarios. Not to mention, she's attention seeking. She teases, she quips, she doesn't spook easily, and she has no problem making a bit of a spectacle of herself while still driving home her moral framing. Tatum often treats Maureen as a topic of nigh ridicule. She's the one who lets Sid know about all of the rumors and how long the rumors had been going on, sort of thing, which would play her directly into Billy's utilitarianism. People are means, not ends. He manipulates Stu's self-esteem, literally thumping his forehead, and treats every ally as consumable, from Stu to the tied-up father. So killing Tatum is nothing but a tidy act, and Stu's approval-seeking makes him the perfect frontman and the perfect inside lock, smiling in one room while the real issues are being taken care of elsewhere. He wants the show. Billy wants the control. The pairing makes betrayal predictable. And the scene where she gets it telegraphs a personality shift. Tatum clocks the mask as a joke, plays along, and then after that first slice, it is all survival. And it keeps the canon intact. Billy and Stu are still the only mass killers. They abduct Neil to frame him. The reveal still plays. The theory adds explanatory glue to the negative space. Why does Tatum feel so strangely central to logistics? Sleepover host, party runner, beer target, and then vanish. Because she was useful until she wasn't. Why does the phone timing at Tatum's house fit so neatly with Billy's jail alibi? Because she helped coordinate it. Why the easy talk about Maureen? Because Tatum sees Maureen's choices as the first tile in the Rube Goldberg machine and rationalizes the guy's punishment narrative. In other words, the theory doesn't swap out the machinery, it oils it. The film's world feels thicker, more lived in. When you imagine the social labor off screen, the rides, the doors, the I'll be there at 7, the clamped smile when the interior lock doesn't budge. Read in this way, Scream isn't just about clever guys with knives. It's not just about one guy's delusional revenge tour that involves another guy that he pressured into it. It's about ordinary complexity. How spectacular harm often rides on everyday favors. The issues of relationship and personality and bad choices. Drive me here. Tell me when she's alone. Hold the door. Tatum becomes the franchise's most tragic mirror, the friend whose loyalty to Stu, to the idea of the group, curdles into participation, and whose death is less random than it seems. She doesn't die because she grabbed beer. She dies because in Billy's math, she knows too much and she's no longer useful. It also softens a long-standing curiosity about tone. Why Tatum is so breezy, even cavalier about the story's most radioactive topic. Because she's been narrating the week to herself as a story, a game, a set of rules. When the knife goes real, the story breaks. Her expression changes accordingly, and she fights like someone who finally realizes the role that she's been assigned. So let me know what you think of this theory. Sound off below with any theories that you have and what other essays you want to hear me do. I love having conversations like this. Let me know down below. If you like this one, you'll probably like the next one that's being recommended to you. Peace.